Okay, welcome back everyone to the deep dive.
Hello.
We are really tearing into a fascinating piece of source material you've shared with us today.
Yeah, this one's interesting. It's a film review, actually.
Right, for a film called 2 to 1, it just screened at the Glasgow Film Festival.
And our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack how this film, well, based on what the review says anyway, takes this very specific historical moment,
Mm-hmm.
the reunification of Germany, and specifically that really difficult currency exchange for East Germans.
Yeah, the chaotic part.
Exactly.
Right.
And how it spins that into what sounds like, well, a surprisingly compelling story.
Absolutely. In the review, it kind of gets right to the heart of that historical pain point, doesn't it?
It does.
That mandated 2 to 1 exchange rate, East German marks for West German marks, and people only had days to convert their cash.
It's brutal. Just
Right.
brutal. The review uses the phrase hammer blow, actually.
Yeah, hammer blow, yeah. To an already collapsing economy. State industries just gone overnight.
Yeah, imagine that. Your life savings, everything you've got in cash, suddenly worth half. And you've got, what, less than a week to even try and deal with it?
It paints this picture of just like instant financial ruin for so many ordinary people. And the film, it takes this really bleak reality and adds this almost, I don't know, absurd twist.
That's what it sounds like.
The review sets the scene, right? July 1990, town called Halberstadt. Like lots of the former GDR, unemployment has just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So you've got characters like Marin and her husband Robert just suddenly adrift.
Right. Living in those, socialist era apartment blocks, their jobs, their whole sense of security
Yeah.
tied to a state that's basically dissolving around them.
But then this is where the film pivots, according to the review.
Okay.
Robert convinces his uncle, who works for some state company, to let him and Marin and another guy, Volker, just kind of poke around in this secure bunker the uncle manages.
Okay. And they find something.
They stumble upon it. Caverns, just
Yeah.
filled with East German marks.
Wow. Mountains of actual cash.
Physical cash. That is literally days away from being worth next to nothing.
Okay, so they've got this ticking clock.
An incredibly short window, days really, to figure out some kind of plan, any plan, to cash in as much of this basically worthless money as they possibly can.
That premise alone is just wild, isn't it?
It really is, like you said, a ticking time bomb, but made of paper money.
What's immediately fascinating, though, reading this review, is the film's approach, how it handles this heavy subject.
Yeah.
It describes a relatively playful feel throughout.
Okay, hang on. Playful, you're talking about economic collapse, people feeling betrayed, losing their national identity. How does it manage playful without, trivializing it all?
Well, the review points to a couple of things, like the opening credits are apparently kaleidoscopic, almost poking fun at the whole idea of money itself.
Yeah.
And then the scenes where they're trying to get into the bunker, they're shot with, like, Mission Impossible style score, all breathless, sneaking around.
Huh. Okay, that's a choice. That definitely signals this isn't going to be some somber, straightforward historical drama.
Exactly. And it sounds like the visuals play a huge part, too.
How so?
Well, when we think of, like, former East German neighborhoods, the default image is often kind of gray, right? Stark, concrete blocks.
Totally. Gray, utilitarian, maybe a bit monochrome.
But this review highlights how the film uses, like, sun-dappled yellows, warm corals, even vibrant turquoise.
Oh, that's unexpected.
Yeah, it's described as suggesting this sense of hope for the future, maybe one that hasn't quite arrived yet. It feels like a deliberate visual contrast.
So a contrast to the historical stereotype and also to the immediate bleakness the characters are facing.
Precisely.
So, okay, it has this playful, colorful surface. But what's going on underneath? The review mentions two parallel stories.
Yes, and this seems to be where it taps into the deeper stuff. The review talks about a national drama kind of intertwined with a personal one.
Okay, the national level first.
That's about the widespread disillusionment, the anger. The flaws of the old GDR system are obvious, but there's also this dawning realization that, hey, life in the West isn't necessarily this guaranteed upgrade for everyone.
Right, like that bit of dialogue the review quotes between Robert and Marin. Robert says, "They've screwed us all these years."
And Marin replies, "But you always knew that."
Yeah.
And then Robert just sighs, "Yeah, but I hoped for something else."
Oof. That's potent.
Incredibly potent, as the review notes. It just distills that feeling of betrayal, doesn't it? Losing a future you hoped for, finding yourself suddenly almost stateless, You don't belong to the past, but you're not sure you fit into the future either.
Yeah, the idea that everything you were told your life was about building socialism is suddenly just dismissed, seen as nothing more than like cheap labor by the West. How do you even process that kind of evaporation of your whole world?
And that leads to this interesting question the film seems to be asking. What fills that vacuum? When an ideology collapses, does, naked greed just rush in? The review mentions the characters initially think about sharing the bunker money with their neighbors, like a collective act almost. Defiance against the failed state, maybe.
But human nature, personal interests, individual dreams, they're always there, aren't they? Ready to complicate things.
Exactly. So it seems to offer this intriguing look at how people navigate sudden, unexpected wealth born from chaos and failure. Does having piles of cash, even cash that might be worthless soon, actually solve your problems?
And the review implies the film suggests, maybe not.
Seems like it. Not necessarily.
And woven into all this, the national stuff and the bunker scheme, there's the personal drama too.
Yeah.
The review highlights Marin's struggle, especially with Volker returning. He's the third person on the plan.
Yes, and the review makes it clear they have a history, a romantic history.
Oh.
Volker's been in the West. He represents that perceived opportunity, and he's apparently urging Marin to leave her old life and maybe Robert behind. Come with him.
While Marin, according to this review, wants something more complicated, like maybe unrealistic. Keeping both men somehow finding a future back east sounds messy.
It does sound messy, and the review actually flags this romantic triangle as maybe the film's weakest spot.
Oh.
Yeah, particularly Robert apparently being completely oblivious to Marin and Volker's past. The review suggests that stretches credibility a bit thin.
Yeah, fair enough. But despite that potential stumble, the performances sound strong. Peter Kurth as the uncle, Markowski.
Yeah, called engaging. This spirit-swigging character who's seen multiple German eras and seems totally detached from ideology now.
He sounds like a great character, like an anchor in the chaos.
Definitely. Sandra Hüller, who's obviously a huge name now, is noted as maybe not having too much to do beyond the practical stuff, counting cash, keeping the guys focused.
Okay. And Max Riemelt as Robert.
Credited with balancing the cheeky humor and genuine hurt, capturing both the absurdity and that deeper pain, personal and national.
So the cast generally works well. The review says a pleasing ensemble with plenty of funny onliners.
Yeah, suggesting the humor mostly lands, even with the heavy themes underneath.
Good.
Though the review does mention the pacing apparently dips a bit in the second half.
Ah, okay.
Loses some of that initial whimsical energy that makes the film's approach sound so unique.
That's a bit of a shame because that playful entry point seems really key to its angle.
It does. But the review suggests it recovers. It talks about a ridiculous ending that somehow manages to be both unbelievable and genuinely entertaining. Sort of caps it all off.
Okay, a ridiculous but entertaining payoff. I can work with that. And it's interesting. It sounds like the film uses real archival footage of East German companies that survived reunification.
Yes, and facts about the real money bunker that inspired it. Apparently, notes from it were still turning up years later, like in the early 2000s.
Wow. See, that kind of specific real-world detail must really help ground that central premise, which is, let's face it, pretty fantastical.
Absolutely. It connects the slightly wild plot back to the tangible reality of that moment.
Yeah.
So ultimately, this review paints a picture of 2-to-1 as, well, an entertaining way into a period of history that was incredibly difficult, full of personal conflict, national upheaval.
Using this surprisingly light touch, these specific, almost quirky details to keep you engaged.
Right, while still dealing with those bigger, much more traumatic themes just beneath the surface.
So what this review really helps us unpack, I think, is how a film can take something huge and complex, like the messy, painful financial side of German reunification, and make it feel incredibly personal, even darkly comedic sometimes, using things like, a hidden bunker full of soon-to-be worthless cash, or that unexpected vibrant color scheme, or mixing narrative styles.
Yeah, it really highlights how film can translate these massive political, economic shifts, things that seem abstract, like changing borders or currency rates, into the immediate, tangible reality of someone's everyday life.
It shows how these huge forces just fundamentally alter relationships, create these bizarre dilemmas.
And capture that raw feeling of being completely, utterly screwed by history, basically.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Beyond this specific story, how many other moments of huge historical change had these kinds of surprising, deeply personal, almost hidden impacts on ordinary people.
Yeah, the kinds of impacts you definitely don't read about in
Yeah.
the main historical accounts, those little everyday consequences of massive events.
Exactly. What other moments like that are out there waiting to be explored? Something for you to maybe mull over.